Okay. Good morning, everybody. This is Christy Denise Bach with Goddess Talks. I am here with my co-host, Raven Starr. Say hi, Raven.
Hi, Raven. Hi, everybody. I hope you guys are doing well on this Monday morning. How was your weekend? Was it good?
Nobody died.
Oh, goodness. Okay. Well, then I guess your weekend was good.
So we have so much that has changed with our little show over the last couple of months. We started Goddess Talks in July, and I started the show when I was starting the book review website, Literary Goddess, and I knew I needed help right away. So I got up with Raven. We started getting together. We started doing the show together, and we had it hosted on Blog Talk Radio. Now, Blog Talk Radio was really nice, and it has a lot of features that I like, but it's pretty pricey. So what we're doing now is we've moved the podcast to TalkShoe, and it has a lot of additional features that I am really excited about. One of them, this will be our first podcast that is live streamed to YouTube. So what will happen is I will eventually build a YouTube account specifically for the show so that Raven and I can both manage that one. We'll get there eventually. But for now, it's just streaming to mine. So a little bit about myself. My name is Christy Denise Bach. I am an author. I used to write with, Red Rose Publishing, Champagne Publishing, Highland Press. I think that might be it. I have since re-released all of those old books as an independent publisher. Raven, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I am also an author, and I was also with Red Rose Publishing. I was with Damnation Publishing, and that's bad because I can't remember the other one. But it's okay because I have all of those books, and I'm working on them, and I, too, am going to release all of my old stuff. So that's going to be cool.
It's exciting to know that we have that capability, that the world has come so far. Now, this morning, we have a guest, and I am excited to bring her on. I'm trying to get the screen to go with as we're talking. So our featured guest today is Jeannine A. Cook. I went too far on the screen. So Jeannine, say good morning. Tell everybody about yourself.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. It is a nice cold morning in Philadelphia. That's my home base. And I am a writer. I've been a writer, I was saying on Twitter, probably since I was about 6 years old, but I've run from that gift time and time again, always wanting to find a way to make money. So not feeling like I could use writing as that channel until most recently deciding that I don't care anymore about that, like that fear, and deciding to go all in. And I met you all on Twitter as well. And felt like it was a great opportunity to talk about my upcoming book of short stories, Conversations with Harriett.
So tell us about
Conversations. I'm looking at it, and I love your cover. Your cover is awesome.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
So tell us about Conversations with Harriett.
Yeah, so it's a compilation of, and I wanted to just, before I even go there, just say, congratulate you all. I know that, any of these steps take a lot of work, and that especially when you're in the beginning phase, it's a lot. But thank you all for, putting all of that work in and making sure, writers have a platform to share. I really appreciate that.
Oh, thank you.
That's awesome.
So I was, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was looking at your bio that you have on your website, and that's what I used for the information I have. So It says that your work's been recognized by the New York Times, CNN, Ebony, BET. That is huge.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's huge.
It's exciting. I mean, so for most of my life, my adult life, I've been working as a publicist. And so some of the artists that I've worked with, I've been able to, make sure that they've secured places in those large platforms. And now making sure that I can do the same for myself is just a different talent.
It is when you are focusing on yourself, and it's almost easier to focus on someone else because we're kind of designed as humans to build other people up, but we kind of tear ourselves down a little bit. So
yeah,
it's easier.
I mean, especially as women, right? Like women,
Yes.
I think we're just socialized and maybe born that way, where we are just natural nurturers for the most part. And so I found myself digging way deep into other people's lives, and then when it came time to look at my own, I was just like, I'll get to it,
Yeah, I get it. I totally get it. Now, next week, our featured guest next week is author Delia Rose. I'm super excited about her.
Oh, I'm super excited.
I know. I have seen her online. I've been friends with her on Facebook for, gosh, who knows how long now. But we're both from North Carolina, so it's nice. And then I actually, one of the first conversations when I had with her, it's an unfortunate series of circumstances, but there was a school shooting in North Carolina, and I knew she had lived near us, near where it happened. And then come to find out, I believe her son, her son was there. So it was a heartbreaking way to get to know someone, but that's what started our friendship. And then the following week, it's going to be an all about Raven show. She's going to showcase all of her stuff, and we're going to have a nice video to go with it. We'll get there. I'm working on it today. And then on December 16th, we'll have author VV. So we have a lot of fun things coming up. I'm pretty excited. And then
VV is awesome, you guys. She is absolutely a great person, and she did my cover. So she has so many different things that she's into.
That's awesome. Yep. And that's what we need to do. We need to just, make sure we're connecting on as many levels as we can with one another. Because people have multi-talents. We're not just writers just because we're writers.
Right, exactly. And on December 15th, my newest book, Ascension Descension, is coming out. So I'm excited about that, too.
Yay!
Wow, congrats.
I ordered, so I can't wait to get into it. I should send it to you so you can autograph it and everything.
Well, what I did on Facebook is it's the holiday season, so I put a post out there. If anybody wants to buy me a Christmas present, and I do like Christmas presents, I'm a big fan. All I want for Christmas this year is Amazon gift cards so that I can buy author copies of my book. I really want to do local vendor sellings. Like I just do.
Yeah, so it's super smart.
So the other kind of crazy new thing that I have going on is I wrote a political piece for our local paper, and I'm a liberal in a very conservative town, and so that should be out, I think, next week, maybe after Thanksgiving, but it's going to go over like a ton of bricks. I can't wait.
It's going to be awesome.
They're going to love it.
Oh, yeah, it's going
to make some people think at the very least.
Well, I sent it to my cousin. She's a fairly conservative human, but, pretty level-headed. And she wrote back. She's like, basically, she said, I love you. I don't agree with anything you said, but it was well written.
Girl, I agree with everything you said.
Oh, that's right. I sent it to you.
And that's a really good cousin. That's a good cousin that'll tell you how she feels without debasing you or degrading you, you know?
Well, that's what we've lost as a society, right? Like, we've lost the ability to say that.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many
we
things
can
I don't agree
with. We
with.
can disagree wholesomely.
Yes, that's the best way to put it. That's still going on my Twitter later. Yes, we can disagree wholesomely. So, but basically everything is going to come down to how it's received, and whatever the case may be, it'll be fine. But enough about me. That's not who we're here to talk about today. So, Jeannine.
Yes.
What if you could tell one thing to the, we'll say, dozens of people who are going to listen to this morning, what would you tell them about yourself? What is one thing you would like the world to know about you?
I'd like the world to know, that's a good question. I'd like the world to know that we are allowed to be multifaceted, that I don't fit in any of the boxes that have been designed for me, and that I've spent a lot of time making sure of that. So, I'm a single mother. I have 3 children, but that doesn't mean that I am, all of the other stereotypes that come along with that. Or, I have all of these degrees, but that doesn't mean that I'm all of the stereotypes that go along with that. And I think that the social structure has, especially more recently, has been trying to make us all fit into these boxes. Oh, you're liberal, or you're conservative, or you're woman, or you're man, or you're bi, you're trans, like all of those boxes which we all transcend. And so that would be my message about me. It's just like, if you go to know me is to love me, literally. It's better off for us to try to have these dialogues and to look at any of the things that I am on paper and try to assign me to any one box. And for any of us,
I agree with that. I think that we try to label ourselves to death, right? So and it's funny because one of the things I struggle with as a writer is writing my own biography, or even if it's a paragraph or 3 sentences, or how do you describe yourself? Well, for the last 24 years, I've been somebody's mom, and then 3 other moms, and then, you're somebody's daughter growing up. You don't really have your own identity. You're somebody's sibling, somebody's sister. You have all these things attached to you. I was, recently, I would say within the last year, and I'm 40, when I started to realize my name had identity.
Absolutely. Yep. I agree totally with that.
So how did Conversations with Harriett come about? How did it come to be?
Oh, good question. So Conversations with Harriett, like I said, is a compilation of short stories that I've written over the last about 3 years. And what I was just noticing is that I went to South Africa to kind of study, and I thought that I was going to write a different book. And while I was there, all of these other people were hitting me up, what about that thing you did? And what about that thing you did? And I had all these fringes, missing edges that either weren't finished, or I hadn't done anything with them besides write them and kind of tuck them away. And I felt like, now was the time, right? I felt the pressure of doing it now. And I went and spoke to my sister, and my sister was asking me a lot of questions, because I was like, I'm not a writer because I'm not making any money off of being a writer. So I can't call myself a writer if I've only, I've sold an article here or there.
Why?
And exactly. And that was her question. Her question was well, why? Why is that? And it's again, that those boxes, right? Those self-created or socially created boxes, where I felt like in order to be something, I had to have all of this wealth behind me to validate my position, which was totally false. Totally false. It was just a matter of, do you get up and do this thing, or do you not? Writers write. Writers, one of my old professors says, writers do writerly things, right? Whether that's reading books or reviews or writing reviews, or, writers do writerly things, and then you're a writer. And I had an old poem that I'd written a while ago called Conversations with Harriett, where in the story, in the poem, it's like a narrative poem, Harriet Tubman is whispering in my ear, and I'm saying things that she's whispering to me. And one of the things she keeps saying is, it's me they follow, it's me they follow, it's me they follow. And only for Harriet Tubman's movie to come out right now, which I didn't know was going to happen, like I wrote this years ago, and for all these other Harriet Tubman, you know, the $20 bill to happen, and I just felt like, oh my goodness, she's really talking to me, and it is true. You know, as a woman, as a leader, right? It is me they follow, and when I am walking in my power, I give so many other people permission to do the same thing, and so that's where Conversations with Harriett comes from.
Okay,
that's totally a beautiful thing.
I do think it was so cool, the timing of it, like. Not for nothing, but you could piggyback off the Harriet hashtags that are running on Twitter right now.
Exactly.
The $20 one was trending yesterday.
Oh, see, I mean, it's so funny how it all unfolded, you know. I just want a real quick joke. After I finished having that conversation with my sister about not, you know, writers make money doing their writing. And then the next day I got an email from a literary magazine that picked up one of my stories. And they were like, oh, and we're going to send you $35. And I cracked up because $35, even though it's not very much money, it was still like, it was like the universe laughing at me and saying, oh, you said you need to make money to be a writer. Here's some money. Are you now a writer? And I think that is just funny. And it's just true. I am a writer.
Well, that's what it is. We have to learn to stop defining our success markers by what other people have accomplished. We're not them.
Exactly.
We don't walk in their shoes. Raven and I have this conversation all the time because we both identify success so very differently. We were talking maybe about a month ago, maybe not. No, probably less than a month ago. Anyway, I was venting because I was upset. My book sales were sluggish. I wasn't seeing the return on the investment for time that I do. I mean, I probably work 12-hour days on all of this, and I wasn't seeing the investment. So I'm whining. Oh, Raven, I only sell one book a day. Like, this is terrible. And she just popped back with, shut up, I ain't sold a book in a month. So I was like, it just, I was like, well,
that's exactly
dang.
what I said. Excellent rebuttal.
So when I thought about it, I was like, well, one, I need to understand that success is success. If one person out there that you don't know bought your book and it's not your mama, I think that's a successful day.
Absolutely.
I loved the Toni Morrison quote you had on your website. If there's a book that you want to read and it hasn't been written yet, then you must write it.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
So I love that.
I mean, so Toni Morrison is you know, she's my fairy godmother. And it's just beautiful. I took my children to go see her documentary, Pieces I Am, and sat in there and laughed and cried and laughed and cried. And the children are like, you know, totally not feeling it because an adult, you know, documentary. And so and I had my nephew with me and they're like crawling under the seats and then right, I was like, oh my goodness, you know, trying to get them. And then Toni Morrison, maybe the next Thursday, passed away. And my daughter came to me and said, ooh, Mom, wouldn't it be great if we created The Bluest Eye Part 2? And I thought, wow, so she, at, 10 years old, is, even though it seemed like they weren't paying attention, Toni Morrison's effect is just, she has an effect on anyone who reads anything that she writes or listens to anything that she says, even my little 10-year-old daughter who's now going to work on The Bluest Eye Part 2, which I think is just beautiful.
That is fantastic.
So who are some of your writer mentors or, fairy godmother or fairy godfather writers?
I would have to say Maya Angelou. I love Maya Angelou. Everything that she did spoke to me. And when I was up north, I got to see her. And the whole room was silent as she spoke.
Mm-hmm.
And it was such a moving experience. It really was. I didn't get to meet her, but I was in the audience, and I was completely dumbfounded.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's hard for me to define writers that, that would impact me on those. I mean, like different books meant different things for me.
Mm-hmm.
I just drew a blank. Who wrote Alice in Wonderland? My brain just went dead. Lewis.
Carroll.
Lewis Carroll.
Lewis Carroll. Thank you. So, as weird as it's going to sound, Lewis Carroll made it okay to use your imagination.
Oh my goodness, he's a genius.
Absolutely.
But for me, and he's not even a writer, but it was Fred Rogers that let it be okay for your characters to have life and to have voices and to have personalities. And he encouraged, and I guess I just grew up at the right time to have been in Pittsburgh, where Fred Rogers is from. So I would probably credit him with the most of my ability to use my imagination.
Yeah, I love that.
Who's your favorite author? Like, who do you read for pleasure?
For me, so back to Toni Morrison. So I think that one of the things that I recognized when I tried to read her work when I was a lot younger was that it was just so heavy. It was like I needed to read it with a dictionary and a notebook, and like it felt like so much work. And there was this one professor who just cracked open Beloved for me, and because she forced us to read it and forced us to read it quick, we had to read it in a week. And
right.
Like she just pushed so hard, and then at the end to be, I'm like, oh my goodness, it's. I feel like I write a lot of magical realism, thriller magical realism, and I think that Toni Morrison inspires me, and that she's not afraid to write about ghosts and spirits, but still be very in a very realistic setting, historically realistic setting like Beloved. So that's who I'm like going deeper and deeper with every week, especially since her passing. I just started over and decided I wanted to read everything that she's written and just let it speak to me. I also really, really love Alice Walker. My son read The Color Purple this summer.
The Color Purple is my thing.
Right. He read The Color Purple this summer, and for a 16-year-old boy to read it and be like, whoa, I was like, yeah, it just transcends. It transcends all of those boxes. It transcends all those boxes that so society tries to put us in, and then it also gives us other perspective to look at the world through.
One of the things I wanted to ask about, and we kind of talked about it a little bit already, was the power of an author's voice. So we have almost a responsibility at this point to be very mindful of what we are putting out there in the universe. Now, I brought up earlier my the political argument that I submitted because I wanted to kind of use that as a segue. What we put out there can be taken literally, can be taken differently than we wrote it, differently than we meant it, differently than we thought it. So, and I'd like you both to answer this. What do you feel we have as a responsibility in our words, whether we're writing fiction or whether we're writing for magazine publication, newspaper publication? Where does our responsibility start and stop as far as using our voices for positive? Because right now, and I'm going to use an example that I read about this morning, which is where this is all coming from. So there was a forum conversation on Reddit, which I'm a big fan of, and an author had wrote a book where the character was savagely raped, and but it was written in almost a glorifying way because the activist wound up being the hero of the book. Now,
Wow.
now and I'll just use romance because it does happen fairly often in a lot of the older romances. There's a line of like forced or coerced, or he overcame her apprehensions or whatever. And so basically what the question I'm posing to both of you is, where does our responsibility start and end with our words as we write them?
Well, I'll jump in, Raven, and then you can add in and tell me when to hush my mouth. But one of the things, that's such a good question, and one of the things that makes me think about is Booker T. Washington and W.E.B. Du Bois, and how they both felt very differently about the ways in which African Americans should represent themselves artistically. And W.E.B. Du Bois felt like it was our responsibility to tell stories that uplifted us and made sure we were seen in the most humanistic and idealistic light. And Booker T. Washington felt like, no, it's actually our responsibility to be honest and tell the truth as we see it. And whether those truths aren't so pretty or not, it's really our responsibility to make sure that truth is told. And I think that I often agree. Sorry, what did you say? I didn't hear it. I was just gonna say I feel like I live in that.
Agree with you.
Yeah. It's such a complicated question, and I think that especially raising it around an issue such as rape, how do we navigate this? What is our responsibility as the storyteller? Do we tell the story as we see it, or do we tell the story as it should be? And then if we tell the story as it should be, do we eradicate reality in some ways and misinform people about the truths of our times? I think that my last short story that I just finished is called Us versus the State, and it's about a couple that gets into a fight with a police officer, and then a group of police officers end up, kind of ascending on them and beating the male character, very, very badly, and also the female character. And I think that, in some ways it's like, well, to tell such a story, are you trying to make the police look bad? Are you trying to raise sympathy for, these certain types of characters? And I think that that was the truth as I saw it. That was the story as it came to me. And I have to be responsible to myself about that. But I think that I also have a philosophy in my life of do no harm. And so that philosophy just kind of comes out in my writing as well, where my work is not designed to do harm, just like, my daily practices aren't designed to do harm. Like I look for opportunities to make sure that I am doing no harm to others.
Okay. Raven?
That's beautiful. That's totally, absolutely beautiful, because I totally agree. I think we have a responsibility to tell the truth. You know what I mean? And I think that a lot of people, when they're reading our books, some people don't understand, and it's like, this is the truth the way I see it. This is how I think things should be. And when you write like that, you really touch people. I found that you really, really touch people. And I think that's amazing, that you can reach somebody just with words.
It's to me, it's one of those things where when we go in writing fiction, we understand that there are going to be parts of our world that's made up, that we've invented, that we've created, whichever word choice you'd like to use. But ultimately, we need to be mindful of the society that's going to read what we wrote. So, it's one thing to write, we'll say, historical romance, and say you're writing in the late 1700, early 1800 time period. We all know, historically speaking, that was not a good time for our race as humans. It just wasn't. So, but there's no need to show how well you researched by writing in complete detail the atrocities that happened. because all you're doing is perpetuating that it happened. We all know it's time to keep it moving. But the flip side to that conversation is, it is certainly not okay for me to, like, I wouldn't feel comfortable reading a book where someone went back and rebranded history where none of it happened.
Right. Yep. Yep. Yeah,
But that's kind of what we did as a country. So.
Great question.
Yeah, we like to talk about
I do
interesting
have a
things
question.
sometimes.
I do have a question.
Fire away.
Okay. I just want to know, Jeannine, how long does it take you to write a book?
Okay, so because this is a compilation, it's a book of short stories, what you'll see is, like, some of them are a page, some of them are flash fiction, some of them are, 20 pages. So it just really depends on the story and where I am right at that moment. If I'm in the zone, I can really knock something out in a night and be like, oh, wow, this is pretty good. Even in first draft phase. What I've had to do, just because I have the children and I have to work and I have all of these responsibilities, is that I have had to do my writing mostly like late in the night or early in the morning, 3, 4 in the morning, and really have to be diligent at that time, because my time is, I might not get it again. I might not be able to get back to it for a while. And so that's kind of like my writing process, is to get in there, and if I can get into the zone, just stay in the zone. And it's usually, I need it to be like the wee hours of the morning. I need it to be very, very still, and then everything's flowing.
I struggle writing in chaos.
Too.
Oh, you struggle writing in chaos? Yeah, me too. I can't do it at all.
Because I'm a mother, too.
If it's messy, I can't do it either. I'm like, oh, what's this mess? I see all the mess.
I also, I like a quiet space where I can shut a door and not have someone behind me. I don't have young children, but I have teenage sons, and they will just stand and hover and stare at me, and I'm like, what?
Yeah. That brings up a great question. So some of my content is just like it's not child friendly. It's not child friendly. And my daughter, again, who's 10 and really into, some of these topics that it's probably way beyond her age in some ways, wants to read this stuff. She's just like, I want to read your stuff. I want to support you. I want to know what you're talking about. And I'm like, how do we navigate this? How do I navigate this? And especially, if I don't know what your content is fully, if there's anything that your sons may say, what, Mom? But how do you navigate that?
Well, for me, as my kids got older, I can't pay them to read what I write. But I think it comes down to, and this is again just me, as I got older, I stopped writing anything I wouldn't want them to read. But they were also heading into their teenage years, so I guess where my line came was, I just decided not to put anything out in the world that they weren't ready for. So now again, like I said, mine are older, so it would have been different when they were younger. And I'm just going to use sex as an example. Like, when they were younger, I probably would have written more erotic fiction or things along that line, because one, it was huge then, but two, because there would have been no way of them, getting their hands on it. But once they became teenagers, and their personalities are there, their brain is there, they're forming independent thought, I kind of took it upon myself to be like, okay, I only want to put out the things that they can handle. So, and I don't even know if I made that a conscious decision or not, but it is what it is.
Yeah, it's beautiful too. Like, it shows how much you respect them.
Well, you have to, because, and it's not just my children. I think that way for, because, so, you look at the different people throughout history, and J.K. Rowling's story is amazing. She was poor and on welfare and struggling, and writing their story on the napkin.
Did you know that she wrote? On a napkin.
On a napkin.
Oh my God. Wow.
On a napkin.
And that one idea that was rejected something like, I don't know, I'm going to make up a number here, 60 times, we'll say, turned out to be something that millions of children probably learn to read because of, or learn to enjoy reading because of, which is almost more important.
Found comfort.
So, yeah. So, I think if we're all just a little more mindful of what we're putting out there, I mean, we're obviously not all going to be J.K. Rowling's, but it's our social responsibility because we're killing each other out there on social media. Like, we are the top trends for Twitter, the top trends for Instagram. They've been atrocious. I mean, mostly all politics, but not even just in this country, across all the countries, everybody's fighting over the whole nationalism cracks me up because, it's like, yes, be proud of your country, but you kind of have to be aware that your country did some things.
One of my friends,
and they're not always good things.
Yes, you can have a flag, but remember there might be stains on that flag.
Yes, and I think that's where the world is struggling right now. Is one, we've stopped listening, but two, because we've stopped holding ourselves socially accountable, which is, like I said, where this question came from. Where does our responsibility with authors lie? Because everything that's being put out there is so captured and memorized and dissected and tweeted and
it almost seems like the more negative it is, the more response you get, right? Like see, which people are like, well, I mean, I'm looking for a response,
and controversy
something negative
sells.
out on Twitter, people, it totally sells, and people are like, well, I'm responding to my audience. This must be what they want. But in reality, social media kind of promotes these things, right? Like they know that when people are arguing in comments, those posts you'll see those more often than the ones where someone's like, oh, look at this nice thing.
Right. Yep. Kittens, babies, and drama. That's it.
Oh, I love that. I'm going to use that. Kittens, baby, and drama.
Babies and drama. Sounds like a T-shirt.
Right? That's going to be Raven's next short story.
Right. I'm going to take that title too, girl.
So, I don't try to get political on a podcast because it's just usually bad news. But we all seem, after reviewing your website stuff, Jeannine, and I know Raven, we're all very forward thinking. So I wanted to have this conversation because it is getting to the point where everything that we put out there it's controversial, whether even the simple things like I had a conversation with my daughter the other day. She was talking to me about this tattoo she was trying to get, or she was looking at to get. And it was just 2 words, no rain, and then over 2 words, no flowers. And so, I'm so stupid and old, I guess. I was like, oh, is that about global warming? And, you get that, no, Mom, look. But so, she had to explain to me what it meant. Basically, you have to, I guess, invest in yourself to grow is how I understood it. But what it taught me was that there's an entire language now and colloquialisms and things like that I just have no knowledge of anymore because I don't watch television.
I don't even like it on in my house. I don't do TV much in our house either, and I definitely don't let the news stay on. I'm just like,
I don't do the news. Yeah, I don't do
the news. It's horrific, and it's just
depressing. There's shootings in Walmart. There's shootings at school. When we send our kids to school, we're not sending them there to die. We're sending them there to get an education. And now so many kids are afraid to go to school. And I find that just atrocious. Just atrocious.
Well, I think that people are easier to control when they're afraid. And I think that a lot of what we see now is our attempt to make sure that we are, as people, just easily controlled. You know, we're very easily moved by whatever comes across the screen or whatever is trending. And it's, you know, I was talking to someone and was just talking about emotional intelligence and how, you know, there's not really any place in society where you learn how to control your emotions. And so if you're constantly you know, susceptible to whatever comes your way, and you really haven't learned how to deal with it. So by the time you get to an adult, you still have those same behaviors that you had when you were 2 or 3, because there wasn't really anywhere for us to like learn how to process emotion, how to deal with anger, how to deal with sadness. And now we have a social structure where rage is turning into things that we can't control. And it's like, well, where are we going to support people with this emotional intelligence? How do we make sure that, and I'm not saying add anything else to a teacher's schedule, right? I'm just saying, like, well, a social this is a social entrepreneurship opportunity, right? Like, where can we make sure that people are getting emotional strength so that we're not just falling apart because people didn't like my clothes or my shoes.
And I think it fundamentally comes down to, again, politics, living wage, and things like that, because you can't focus on your emotional health when your stability is in question. If you can't feed yourself, you don't care if, you're struggling with anxiety. If you don't know if you're going to make rent, then depression's not a big deal because, life. So it's so much, there's so many things that factor into this. But you're absolutely right. We don't have emotional maturity, certainly not as a society, because we glorify those who embrace their extremes. So, and that's funny because the article that I wrote for the paper is called "The Reality Show President," because that's exactly what happened. Is we've glorified the extreme and embraced our inner rage.
Yeah. And I think there's so many, like, what I've noticed now is people are asking questions to try to determine where you sit, where you stand, whose side are you on? And I'm just like, I just need all of the sides to stop. Like, there's like all of the, like, I've worked on conflict resolution in urban areas and in schools for years, and I'm just like, one of the first things that people try to do to justify their hate and their rage is to other. That person's over there, they're one of them, and I'm over here, and us over here don't do what they over there do. And that othering is just not helping anything. It's not helping anything. It's just like, I am just as much you as you are me. And because of you, I am, and because of me, you are. Which is something I've gotten from, when I was in South Africa, when they were talking about Ubuntu, which is that concept, I am because you are because I am. And, if the more that we see each other as this other thing, this red and blue, or this, whatever, right? Like, it's just constant. And I'm like, this gang mentality, we know it doesn't work. It doesn't work on the streets of Compton, and it doesn't work in the White House. It just doesn't work. It doesn't work anywhere.
As long as we continue to associate our belief with our facts, then we're going to continue to have that. And I separate it like that very purposefully, because a belief system is entirely different than right or wrong. A belief system is part of, I don't know how scientific this is going to sound, but it's effectively part of your makeup. It is part of you because it is something that you have heard, thought, felt, taught, whatever the case may be, during your formative years. So religion often falls into this, and it becomes a driving force. So you have a lot of people arguing, and you have a lot of people putting them in boxes, but you also have a lot of people who feel that they're being penalized for a lifetime of things that other people have done. And I think that's why we struggle to have that communication, those conversations, because I'm just going to use a flyover state, Kansas. a farmer in Kansas who, has lived on the land his whole entire life and taken care of his family his whole entire life, probably goes to church every Sunday. All they see of different cultures is what's on television because they're not exposed to different cultures. So what they see on television is the negative. I mean, we just all went through and said,
becomes their reality.
Yeah, and that's all they know. So it's easy to compartmentalize them as a group of people that are doing bad things when that is literally all you're exposed to. And then when you take that entire group of people, you take their voice away, or at least you make them feel like you took their voice away, they came out swinging, and that's where we are today.
Yeah, I mean, similarly, when I was in London this summer, so I have a million jobs, but they were like, oh, you're from the Caribbean, you have a million jobs. And I'm like, that stereotype kind of sticks. But when I was in London, I worked with a group of young people from 16 countries around the world on a project that we call We Are Not at Risk. And while there, we went to a pub, and so this woman, she's, we're drinking, and she's telling me, she's from Birmingham, and she's telling me about life, and she's like, Black people talk like this, and she's just pointing her finger and waving it, and I was just like, where are you getting that from? And she was like, Jerry Springer, and I was just like, Jerry Springer? Like, that's where you get your cultural references of what a Black person does? And she was like, I mean, those are the only Black people I've ever seen on the ones that are on Jerry Springer. And I was just like, wow. And I had compassion for her, like, not hate, not fear. I was just like, wow, like, I'm glad you get to meet me in real life and recognize that that's not real. That's not the reality. But media has to take more responsibility for its stance and where it lives and where it lies and what it gives to the people, because that is those are conscious decisions. It's not a mistake. Anything we see on the screen was decided.
And it just takes that step further that you develop your beliefs based on what you're exposed to, and if you're only exposed to there's so much that I've learned over the last decade that deals with this. I grew up in a household that was not embracing of different cultures. It did not encourage looking different, feeling different, or being different. My parents aren't hateful people, but they were ignorant on a lot of things, and people primarily being one of them. And I know the show's going to go a little over, and that's totally fine. So I'm just going to keep it going because unless somebody's got to go, it's cool.
No, go ahead.
So one of the things
I gotta go.
Okay. One of the things I learned, though, is that there's a lot of misinformation out there that is published in things like medical books and law reviews and actual government documents that segregate us biologically or segregate us emotionally, intellectually. And these are still being used as the foundation of an entire new generation's belief system because we're not even bothering to update them. It was in the American Medical Journal that people of African American descent have a higher pain tolerance than those that are white. That's completely bogus and not true, but it was there.
What's really outrageous about that is how many how studies say that women who have babies in hospitals actually don't get the same care based on their race because of that concept, that belief that African American women are complainers and that they have a higher pain tolerance, so they're fine.
Yeah.
It's like and then people die,
Yeah. So it's another thing, and again, that comes down to the writer responsibility because somebody wrote that article and they were wrong. They were just wrong.
I remember when one of the I can't remember their names. They're the tennis stars, you guys. And I read that when she was pregnant and in the hospital, she knew something was wrong. And she kept telling the doctors, and they kept ignoring her, and her baby was in a whole lot of trouble. And Serena Williams, I got it.
Yes, that's what it was. Yep.
And when
Beyonce had the same experience.
Demanded, yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
That's disgusting to me. That's just so.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you think about how racism started, right? Because it was a construction. It was something that someone thought up. And one of the ways that they was able to spread it was by getting the medical community to agree that, you know, the Negroid brain was smaller and unable to process certain things that the Caucasoid brain. Of course, it was larger and could do all of these things, which we know now is completely false, and that this is made up, and it was the ways in which science was used to back up people's, you know, fear and influence people's power. And it's the same thing that happens now, where people are like, you know, I just read last night some lady talking about, you know, female brain is so small, so she has to submit to man. And I'm just like, where is the science behind
Where
this?
did
Like,
that come from?
What studies have you used to prove this, or is this just something that's easy for you to regurgitate so that it can, you know, get whatever agenda you have accomplished?
And I'm gonna actually disagree with both of you there for a second, because this is and I'm gonna make it funny, so just kind of bear with me for a second.
Okay.
I took my first online anatomy class in 2015 because I wanted to learn, I forget what I was writing, but I needed to know how to dissect a body, but either way. So
Wait. You know how to dissect a body?
I do now.
Oh, wow.
Oh, girl, we got to talk later on.
Now, that needs to that better definitely be in your book.
So
Totally.
as I was reading, now this was in 2015, so I was 35, okay? Keep that in mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
As I'm reading the anatomy book, that's when I learned that women actually have the same amount of ribs as men. At 35 years old, y'all.
Yep.
And I'm not an unintelligent human. I'm not. But I was taught that, you know, men have one less rib because they gave, two less, or whatever it is, because they gave us.
Yeah, whatever.
So it was my belief. Like, I would have sworn to it in court. You could put me on a polygraph and I'd have passed. I could have told you, yes, women have more ribs than men. Period. End of discussion. That was fact. And I was 35 years old when I learned that belief was incorrect. So, and that's what we're battling now, is you have people who are, you know, older than me, and they have no idea how much of their belief system is based on falsehoods.
Yeah.
And then, and you know, and I'm not trying to be, you know, racially sympathetic, but ultimately, what they see on the news and what they see on the internet is, you're a racist, you're a homophobe, you're a xenophobe, you're this, you're that, and the other. When in reality, you're like, dude, I just got up this morning and had a cup of coffee.
Yeah. I mean, I think, again, like, back to the ways in which we are separated on purpose, so as not to be able, one thing I think that we could all serve to do is hold our government officials to a higher standard and hold them more accountable for their actions, whether that's on a local level or a national level. But right now, because we're so divided, because we are constantly bickering over the smallest things, we aren't able to really navigate what it looks like to unify and hold these structures and institutions accountable.
Well, we won't do that until we do it with our money. You know, because we ultimately control what they put on there by what we watch and what we purchase.
Exactly. Yep.
You know, like,
so the decisions that we make every day, those small decisions, they mean so much.
Right. You know, I stopped watching television on a daily basis probably a couple years ago for 3 reasons. One, because I will just never watch rape being glorified on television. There's no, unless it is an integral part of the story and you can't fade to black, I don't ever need to see another woman being raped on television. I just don't. There's no point to it. And it was really Game of Thrones that just did it for me. I
Oh,
loved.
yeah. Oh, my goodness. Game of Thrones. I mean, I loved it, but there was so much penis. You know what I mean? Nobody under the age of 18 should have watched that, because it was just very overtly sexual.
And they were children. Whatever her name is, the Targaryen girl was 14 years old.
Yeah.
So no, I was done with that. But so I make that conscious decision. I don't watch it. I don't subscribe to it. I don't. The flip side to that is I also won't read Handmaid's Tale because it entertains with reality. And we as women are not as far away from that type of setting as we think we are. I'm in the South. I know I'm not.
Yep. Mhm.
In North Carolina, there's like I think there's 2 places in North Carolina where they perform abortions in the entire state. So we're not far off.
Wow. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we are looking at our results. That's what I say. Like this is what we are looking at our results. Whether we like them or not, we are looking at them, and they are all of our results. And if we want something different, there's actions that need to be taken. I was in a city and they were talking about. I was somewhere and they were talking about global warming and some of the issues with that. And then when everyone was asked, so what are the things that you are willing to do to stop this? Like what one act is your family willing to take on? And people were just silent. Like very silent. Like, what solution? We were more upset.
Well, that's because,
we just wanted to.
Yeah, we just want to vent.
We wanted to vent and talk about the issue and how bad it is. But in terms of putting our minds together and actually, holding ourselves accountable and holding one another accountable, not so much. Not so much. And I think it starts in small ways. It starts in small ways with ourselves, right? Like if I say I'm going to wake up at 6 a.m. and write, but then 7:30 I'm just kind of chilling. I'm doing that same thing. If I can't hold myself accountable, of course I can't hold my city council people accountable because I don't even have. I'm not even doing that in my home. And so back to that smallest individual as the republic.
And I think we need to have that more at a community level. Like, be honest. When's the last time you went to a I don't know if you live in a city or a town, but when's the last time you went to a town meeting?
Yeah, I live in a city. And funny enough, I was working alongside a guy who was running for city council, so I was able to be a part of some of the things that I wasn't really a part of before that because I was doing some writing. And I'm in shock. I mean, I live in Philadelphia. Over 1 million people live here. Less than 300,000 people voted in the last city council or mayoral election. So less than half of the people here even participate at all. And then of those people who participate, when I'm talking to them about some of the issues, it's like, no, there's nothing there. It's like, no, I just go blue. You know what I mean? And it's just like, okay, why? What are you hoping to gain? What do you want? You know what I mean? And like, we're not asking ourselves that question seriously enough. What do we want? What do you envision here, and how can we make that happen?
And I agree with that. I think that the lack of voting
responsibility. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't remember one country just had an election. I can't remember which one. I don't feel like looking it up. And they had something like 71% of their or either their population voted or of their registered voters, whatever. But 71%. Y'all, if 71% voted in this country, it would change. It would have no choice but to change.
Goodness. Oh my goodness, yeah. But the chaos, complete confusion, the apathy, it works. It works to keep certain things going. Certain machines are, they depend on us not participating.
And unfortunately,
I love it. I love understanding how things work. You know what I mean? I love talking about it. My son, he says he's planning on majoring in political science. And I'm just like, I'm so excited for him to do that because there is opportunity. There's so much. And I just love history. I love looking at where these things came from. Where did this come from? Why is this way? I've been like studying the American Revolution right now, and it's just like so much is relevant to our time right now. But when do we look back? When do you look back besides, like a 4th of July or something?
So I have one final thought that I want to ask both of you that's kind of on the same discussion. So I asked Derek's my boyfriend, I asked him this question, I don't know, a month ago. At some point as man evolve from wherever we evolve from, whether creation, evolution, whatever's your cup of tea, at some point, and I'm assuming a man because it's usually gender driven, looked at another human and said, I am going to tell you what to do and you're going to do it, thus introducing the colonizing philosophy.
Yep.
So how depraved or desensitized or whatever word you want to look for, at what point do you feel a person has to reach before they can feel that they have more value than somebody standing next to them?
That's a great question. I think that it doesn't take much. I think that going back to what I was saying about emotional intelligence and where do you learn that, I think at around 2 years old, during our our physical development as toddlers, we start to establish this idea of mine. That's mine. That's mine. That's mine. And if you're not in a family structure that begins to support you with understanding that, no, this is ours, or we can share, or this is how this is done, like it just doesn't go away. You just hold on to that particular frame of mind where this is mine, and I need more and more and more, and the ways in which greed then justify people's actions. I don't think it takes much for people to be, to think that they're above anyone else. That's that othering. It's so easy. I mean, it's so easy. I see it all the time. It's like, even on like really simple scales where my son and daughter argue about, who should sit in the front seat or something. And my son feels like he should sit in the front seat because he's older. And it's just like, well, is that really a judgment for who should be able to sit in the front seat? It's just like a really these small ways in which power dynamics unfold, just based on really arbitrary things. Wicked. I notice that people move over. If somebody's dressed a certain way, we treat them a certain way. It's like a person who can be a total jerk, a total asshole, excuse my language, but they could be treated much better than a person who's actually a pretty solid human being just based on what they have on or what their face looks like. And it's just, it really requires a deeper level of thought. I think that if more people study philosophy and how to debate and how to argue and how to come up with a position, we'd see better interactions between human beings.
I agree with that. I think, first we have to listen and read.
Yeah, absolutely. We have to learn how to listen. I don't think people listen. They hear what they want to hear. It's not like, we're all sitting down like, in some community circle and we're all debating on how change should be made. A lot of people think, hey, man, change should be made, but I'm going to stay at home today because somebody else is going to do that for me.
Well, then let's do this.
I love the millennials so much.
Well, hang on, you guys. Let's do this. So then, let's start the change with us right here, right now. We identified throughout the course of the show that there are some problems that we recognized immediately, and Jeannine identified the lack of voting, and so let's come up with something. What is one thing you're willing to do, we'll say over the next course of this year, change a problem you see, whether, let's do local though. Let's do local to you because, the world is so big. Local to you, identify a problem and something you're willing to do and to work at over the course of the next year to change.
Yes. So even though you said local, I am going to give a little pushback because I am working with youth from all these countries around the world on a project called We Are Not at Risk, where this year youth are focusing in on contacting media companies, contacting reporters, and helping them to understand the importance of narrative change and how you represent youth oftentimes has a very negative impact on their ability to get employment and how their ability to, just to have a safe life. And so one of the things that I can commit to over the course of this year is contacting media outlets and being up for making sure training young people to be able to do that work on their own so that they can have a voice in how they are represented. My son said, we're like a minority group that has no representation. And I said, okay, we'll do something about it. And I think that's one way to do so.
Good. Excellent. Raven, what's yours?
What you got, Raven?
What was the question? What are we talking about? What was the question? Well, that's what I'm thinking. I like the way the millennials think. Now, they are like, the people coming up behind us, and they're all about change. And I think change, I don't think it's going to happen in my lifetime. I don't see anything getting any better. Well, I do watch TV. And when I watch and I'm looking at these millennials, I have a millennial. She's 27 years old. And she has her own thoughts, her own way, and I appreciate that. I think that I raised all three of my children to have independent thoughts. And I think that's where it starts.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you. I think that one of the things that I want to do over the course of the next year is I do want to help work on voter registration, because even now, with all the changes that are going on in North Carolina, they're different. Next year you'll need voter ID, and there's, we have a lot of rural communities where they're just not going to know all that. They're not going to have that information on hand. So what I'm going to commit to doing is, whether through volunteering or through the news, I'm going to help with the getting the voter ID registration out there.
Oh, absolutely. I feel the same. I'm going to bring it back to my daughter because she's not registered. And I told her, you need to register. You have to get up and go and make sure that your voice is heard. So that's what, over the next year, I'm going to get as many people as I can to get out and vote. Change won't happen if we're sitting at home playing on our computer. It's not going to happen.
Yep, agreed. Yeah, and I like to say that the voting is just your first step. It doesn't actually change much until you've actually done something with that vote, right? So you voted, and then the follow-up is, whatever the things you do afterwards to make sure that who you got into office is handling the business that you want handled, and whoever is in there is handling the business as you see fit.
And on that same note, look at who you're voting for. Watch a video. Listen to an interview.
Oh, absolutely.
And not from the news. Like, go on YouTube and listen to a live video of them at their rally that somebody posted from their cell phone. Something that's not filtered through media. Like, yeah. Like, we have to stop. We have to stop with the social filter. Because that's what we're doing. All of our information is coming through us, filtered through somebody else's editing, somebody else's thoughts, somebody else's reporting. So we have to stop that. We have to start forming our own opinions.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so.
Okay, Jeannine, your last comment.
Okay. I have to run because I have one more. I have another interview in like 15 minutes, but I got to get there. Okay. Go ahead. Sorry, go
Just
ahead. I'll finish off.
tell us where to find you.
Yes. Again, thank you, ladies, for having me on. My website is JeannineACook.com. JeAnnine. A is an apple. COOK.com. And then my Twitter is Jeannine A. Cook, and then my Instagram is It's Me They Follow. So find me. Let's connect. I'd like to be connected for real. There's a lot of following going on, but I'm looking for some actual connections. And so if you're into that, I am too. Let's do it.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. I really appreciate it.
We had a good time. Thank you so much.
Oh, yes. Absolutely.
Thank y'all. Have a good one.
Hey, you too. Have a good time.
You too. Thank you.
I will hopefully edit this and see what it looks like streaming live because, like I said, it is on YouTube today. And we will go from there. I will see you next week. This is Christy Denise Bach and Raven Star.
We'll see you next week, you guys, with Delilah Rose. I cannot wait.
Is it Delilah? I always said Dahlia.
No, I think it's Delilah. Oh, we can ask her when she comes on.
Actually, now I'm going to go search YouTube and find her saying her name. Okay. Bye, everybody.
Goodbye, you guys. Have a good day. You guys 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 have a good day.